Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and this is my review for Piranha, which came out in 1978 and was directed by Joe Dante and produced by Roger Corman. Now, I was actually going to review this movie back when Shark Week ended. After I did my Jaws and Jaws 2 retrospective, I had planned to review Piranha as just a little post-Shark Week bonus video, but I got caught up in some stuff and here I am. After the success of Jaws in 1975, there was just this wave of When Nature Attacks movies, where it's pretty much ripping off Jaws, but with different animals. Like, there was Prophecy with a giant bear, there was Orca, produced by Dino De Laurentiis, and in this case we have Piranha, which is a Roger Corman production, as I said beforehand. The movie is exactly what you would imagine it to be. A bunch of piranhas get loose in a lake, and start killing people off one after another. So I talked about how I've seen the remake of Piranha in 2010, directed by Alexandre Aja, and I think it's a lot of fun. It was one of my big guilty pleasures of the last decade, but I'd never seen the original Piranha. So I decided to watch this because there's nothing really else to do during these pandemic times. And I have mixed feelings on this. I feel like there's a lot to like about Piranha, and even a lot to admire about it, but there are also a lot of things in this movie that just really do not work in the slightest. I'm going to start off with the negatives first of all. I like to start out with the positives usually in these reviews, but in this case I'm going to start off with the negatives. The biggest negative I can say about this movie are our protagonists. They're not that interesting, they're not all that bright, and to top it all off, they're actually the reason this movie even happens. The movie opens up with these two teenagers sneaking into a military base to just jump into the pool and pretty much skinny dip, and they are attacked and killed. So our two protagonists actually go out and try to find these two missing teenagers, and they're eventually led to this same military base where the teenagers swam in and disappeared. And we know right off the bat that they were killed by piranhas. And the two protagonists encounter this scientist who pleads to them, do not empty this pool. And the two protagonists are like, screw you, and they empty the pool, draining all the water, but releasing the piranha out into the river. And you're just like, so we're supposed to are we supposed to root for these guys? It's so weird to see a movie about a killer animal where your protagonists are actually the reason why these animals are killing. And what really kills me about this decision are two things. One, the rest of the movie plays out as if you're supposed to be rooting for these characters. And in order for that to work, you have to forget about the fact that they pulled a lever that released all these man-eating fish into a river. And also, these two characters spend the majority of the movie blaming every single other person for these man-eating fish. They blame the scientist who pleaded to them not to release the fish. They blame the military personnel that they encounter, which, granted, each military character in this movie and each mad scientist in this movie are despicable people, but at the same time, they're not the ones that pulled the lever and released the fish, so, like, it's almost unbelievable. I really have never seen a movie where the main problem is caused by the protagonists. If you can think of another movie where the conflict is caused by the main protagonist of the film, please leave a comment down below. And it doesn't matter if it's a monster movie or not, just any movie. I just want to see a list of movies where the conflict was caused by the main characters. That's the biggest problem I have with this movie. Another big problem I had with it is kind of the way it just ends. If you've seen the remake, it kind of ends in the same way the remake does. I mean, there are differences between the original and the remake, but they both end in a way where the day is done, everyone's saved, but uh-oh, cliffhanger for a sequel, and this movie just does a piss-poor job at making you believe there's any kind of resolution to this problem. The big plan that these two main characters try to come up with to try to kill the piranha, or as everyone calls them in this movie, piranha, makes no sense at all. And at the end of the movie, you're just like, wait, you can't be serious in the way you just ended it. It's really hard to explain. Normally with these older retro reviews, I tend to spoil the movies, but the ending to this is just so confusing that I can't really make it out. And there are just a lot of weird out there moments throughout this entire movie. Moments that just don't make a whole lot of sense. And they just kind of go away soon after. For example, when the two main characters enter this military base, there's this stop motion creature walking around. A stop motion creature that was animated by Phil Tippett, who did the Go Motion animation for Ed 209 and RoboCop, and who did the animatics for Jurassic Park back when the movie was supposed to use Go Motion dinosaurs rather than CGI dinosaurs. But this creature that walks around this laboratory is never seen by the main characters, and it never pops up once the characters leave this base, and you just wonder, what was the point of that? Like, that moment popped up, and it was something that I did not see coming for a mile away. And I was so confused why that scene was there, and the fact that it leads to nothing outside of a demo reel for Phil Tippett made me scratch my head. And then there's a moment in this movie where Heather Menzies, who plays one of the main characters, is trying to distract a military guard, and she's out of ideas at this point. So, out of nowhere, she just decides to flash her breasts. And that's not the weird part about the scene. The weird part is that as she's flashing, she says, "Look, up in the sky, it's Superman!" And you see a pair of breasts for about 1 second, but you can tell it's an obvious body double. And it's one of those scenes, much like with that stop motion creature, that comes in and then just suddenly disappears. And when you think back to this movie in your head, you're like, oh yeah, that was a moment that actually happened, and we just had to sit there and watch it. There is a lot to criticize with this movie, sure, but like I said beforehand, there's actually a lot to admire as well. For one thing, the piranhas. They don't appear a whole lot in the movie. I mean, no, let me rephrase that. You don't get a lot of glimpses of the piranha as you would think, or especially compared to the remake. And when you get wide shots underwater of the piranha swimming, yes, I'm going to call them that throughout the entire review, it's hilarious. I mean, it's a Roger Corman movie that costs around $600,000, so I wouldn't expect the special effects to be that impressive. But those wide shots are silly, but when the piranha are on the attack, that sound effect that they make, the fact that they are so aggressive when killing people is kind of disturbing. Like, it's just really creepy when they actually go on the attack. The fact that they kill people slowly, the fact that they can tear apart a raft made out of logs. Like, these piranha are creepy, and it kind of plays into the whole aspect of Jaws, except not as effective, where you don't see the antagonistic animal throughout most of the movie, but they definitely leave an impression on you in one way or another. And of course, much like with Jaws, there is a Mayor Vaughn type character. In this movie, he's played by Dick Miller, and he's probably the most entertaining character of the movie, but he's a totally incompetent version of Mayor Vaughn. And yeah, Mayor Vaughn was incompetent, but this is a guy that really listens to no reason at all and tries to play off everything as if it's nothing, even when there are literal piranhas eating your guests. It's ridiculous. And there's some suspenseful moments throughout when the piranhas start to attack. There's a sequence in this movie that involves a bunch of kids at the camp. One of them is the daughter of the other main character. And they do some interesting setups that eventually lead to the ultimate piranha attack at this camp, where the piranha are actually attacking kids. And you're like, wow, they're actually harming kids in this movie. I mean, sure, Jaws killed Alex Kittner in the most graphic way possible, but the fact that the piranha are taking their time at killing these kids, or at least hurting them, is very creepy. And they're all kids that are actually younger than Alex Kittner was in Jaws. And speaking of Jaws, I think this is a little fun fact that's worth mentioning. This movie came out the same year as Jaws 2, 1978. And Universal had originally wanted to file a lawsuit against Roger Corman and the movie just because it was a Jaws ripoff, right down to the fact that the villain monsters are fish. But Steven Spielberg asked Universal to drop the lawsuit just because Spielberg liked the movie. Now, granted, he and Joe Dante are friends, but even then, that's a little fun fact that I think is worth noting. So Piranha is It's a fine monster movie. It's nothing great. It's a little outdated by today's standards, and there are definitely some corny moments throughout. And the fact that the main characters, the protagonists of the film, are responsible for the piranha killing people is just something I've never seen in a monster movie beforehand. But I would say watch at your own risk. It's definitely fun if you're in the right mindset, but it's not great. And this isn't even Joe Dante's best movie. I will still take Gremlins and Small Soldiers any day over Piranha. And there you go. That's my review for Piranha, or Piranha if you're a normal person. Now I want to know what you guys think about the movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, leave a comment, support my Patreon page, follow me on social media. And until then, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one